إكايا يخصتيني تلتكت يوهان تاكوكسا أوي ووچين خستي ياغ زوم تونخ زوم أياها يس نكهتي يخيتي وصاخ تويك أيايكي آتلين قوء أداي جيوني و US Census يدو ساقو تلتس قودتو هستي توسقو تسو دات يخسقا قستي آتلين شكتخو قوال تلقا هسكا وشيد أجوي هيغ تنجيتين كغختو قوك كنا إساي كخ كيشهد قد جاداسا أوي إدا أوه آتلين قوء ياغ قوچن كويكان دنينا يوبك ينوبيق قول جاكو تتسو قول تاننا الكتين خصكو كوني نخصا وقايق اتنك آتلين قوء ياغ يايجي زيسكو غلي هوك خوخا قد زيسكو توو هوك تلش خوخايجن أخ أيوو كدين خوخا آتلين قنخ تاي أتو قاق أيوو ياغ يخدق قوتي ناس ديخ يجي قانخ أقا قختي قوتتين يا كيجين يجي خانا يا أختوسكو أخدق يتيه أقل شيش خاوي لتكت يوهان يتوى سقول لنجد خينخ يوخاي لأتكي جوك
Dasa iha jisk gli hook ka
زيسك تو هوك
dasa
يا
to
هاي يخيتي أيانخ تزيني أتقوى قنخوي أيو دخ
okay
هو كان سيخا داسة هو كان جنمو تو وشوي شوكوا جنمو أوه ودوا جق يس يا أوشتو نايدي أكاخ أوي وجنبو تو قطواسكو ʻaduwóos'i قال تكتخو هسك قوخا
Slidka kenach bum guts you do a suck
تو like way at nasi
oh okay
nasi أي bumguts فنخوي كنجة تشان يختنجي يا أوهان قا يا الناس أتلين الناس يتوتوخا يا صا قوة كان جنو قا تين خسك أدا تو زيسكو تو يا أوه يا قوي وش كوكي تو cookie two oh like كلياتا يا two هتشوكو at tie two it's يا two يا أوه خا يا دنيزي دليخن جاك ودليخن جاك two in was ياك يك دايا has to two t two يا دنيز يا has to يك يا has our name house our nai has to tour ushko artling kakan tlitsini has to kadeo t a joy yis ka yis shawat uwaya which ago haku which we 18 hukak de haska kwati Ja, de katas du duk a kakoi a nades tu ka yehasan yehas no wooch no wooch. Okay. No, dasa. Dasa to you, huh?
I have a question.
Ah.
I think this is something that maybe I used to know, but I've forgotten. I know some verbs have an ʼaduwóos'i on the end. And so I've been going over the story, ʼaánkich, ʼaduwóos'i, and the verb, the word for drown in there is wooch.
Yeah.
And I didn't really, well, I found it in one place, but I didn't find the verb hoon. And I'm just wondering how that worked.
Okay.
How it works.
Yeah. That's a great question. Let's see. As usual, I have two things open. So yeah, so what we're talking about here, and now we had a couple other questions. Let me make a note of the other questions that I make sure that we get to them. It's kind of our question time. So we have the sucks. We have the at and oops, and thing. I think there was maybe one more. Do we have one? There was one other question we're going to get to. Oh, the day verb. Yeah. And I guess we should do verb. Yeah. Okay. We won't do a day. We're getting there. I just got a cool email from Jeff about some of this stuff. But maybe next week we'll take a look at it. We're looking for woohoo. Okay. Woohoo. We have a woohoo question. Okay. Okay, so let's take a look at ʼaduwóos'i. This is a suffix. Anybody know what it generally means? To remove. So it has to do with removal of something. And now this is one of these things I think that's going to send us on a deep dive into different things. And so when we look up drown, so this is a thing where like we can sort of spend some time taking a look at just how these things are written in different resources, right? So in the verb dictionary, we see ʼaánkich which would be ʼaánkich in other places. And this means the water did it to them. So this is a roundabout way to talk about it, right? And so this doesn't say anything about drowning in there. And I've thought about this quite a bit. The one that I heard this verb from was ʼaduwóos'i, George Davis. And I'll just forever be grateful to him and Marge for the work that they did with me. Mostly because they were so patient and because they were just wonderful and knowledgeable. And so if we come into here, we might enter drown and see what we come up with. We get ʼaánkich, same thing. ʼaduwóos'i, too hot. The heat did it. And then we got sank. So you could also say wooch. ʼaduwóos'i would be somebody drowned somebody or something. Wooch is it just really means sank though. So again, we're kind of talking around the thing, right? And so we've got hin ta ash sauchlechi, tried to drown them. So we have this verb he, interesting. And then we have wuddechunak. So this is listed just under chunak. So it's just listed there by itself. So we don't really have wooddechoon, right? So we can see there's something with tide, there's others, nothing that really seems to be affiliated with it. So there are some avenues we could explore here. So one thing that we could do to try and figure out what's going on here is we might go into this database of nouns and just see if is there anything for hoon in here. Because it means to not be hooned, I guess, is what we're sort of talking about. So we can scroll down, we who, and then the difficulty here is it doesn't really differentiate between the X and the underlined X. But there's chuna and chuni, chunika, chunki, chushaki. So I don't really see anything that has chun in here. So I'm not too sure. Like I've wondered, it means whatever it's saying, it is saying, so coming back to here, when we go to drown, because that's how he said it when we did that work. And it was pretty cool. But we will find I could think of a couple other, I know of a couple other places. I'm sure Zeosh has a bunch of examples somewhere of this thing. But I know one, if you just go to remove, and we'll see what's under remove, and then we'll see what's under restore, because these are sort of opposite concepts. So when we go to remove, there's taking out teeth. Yikes, that's a wild one to start with. Or to take out, but it also says like took all my things. It had his teeth. But this means to like take all of one type of thing is really what this kawajesh is doing. Now you get to remove a splinter, ut. So that has its own verb root, kesha ut. Got the devil's club, sorry. So this is one you could say and but the way that I learned this verb was which means to remove the guts of a salmon. And so here's it's built onto here. So that means probably is a noun. So we could maybe test that theory and see. Then I'll look at one other place for chun that I could think of. So we'll go back to the database here, and we're looking for aish to see if we find anything. So I'll go to T. I'll make this bigger too. Okay. So here we are, TL, aishi, milt, to take the milt out of the fish. And of course, this is semen as well. So there's a link, and it's telling you that there's something to kind of link to a noun. Another place where you're going to find this, we'll see if it's in here before we look for restore and move on to the next question. Oh, to take the shells out of a gumboot. This is also the word for peeling an egg, like a boiled egg. You can take that shell off of it. This is, and so here you'd have which if we sort of think about how this L classifier works, if you say you should be saying it has milt or it has semen. There's a shell on it. So the shell on it has been removed. So it seems to stack on sort of things. There's one, I don't know where it is in here. is removing the hair. So it's different. But anybody know what that one is?
Take away the pretty.
That's a really good, that's a good, that's a good guess. But it's a different, it's not a verb root ʼe. How's that? It is
Can you
remove.
say it again, please?
Something that opens like
Oh, is that
take it out.
the brain? Maybe.
That would be, I wonder if you
Oh.
could say it's to
pearl?
remove the meat from a shellfish, especially a clam or a cockle or
Oh.
something that opens like that, and you remove the meat. So it's interesting suffix, and we'll look at restore, then I'll show you folks one more example. So I think there is one. I think it's the un. I think un is the suffix to put it, to restore it, which I guess for these we can go here and then scroll down to the suffixes, which is down pretty far. Goes through all the verb stuff. And then we go through the prefixes. And then we're getting to post verbs and then stem. So here is un to restore, and here's up to remove. But the other place I do think this exists is, and this is in a part of a deep philosophical discussion, is in yak, kwa, ha. So, whoops, that sure looks like a future tense verb. But then if you go a yaku, yakwa he yaku. I don't know what that. So like the image that it will be is removed or something. It's wild. So that's the living spirit in all things. Okay. Was there a hand up? A second. Okay.
Yeah, that was my hand. I was curious if it was the same thing. I don't remember how it's spelled, but I was curious if it was to remove, if it was the same thing in a kat sewach aku.
Oh,
I think
that one is just a verb. It's a verb root.
yeah, I think it's spelled differently. I was just curious.
But it's good job, like seeing that it does have that same, those same three letters are at the end though. I do think, okay, there was one more. So I was also going to look for hoon. And so sometimes it's really fun to do these deep dives and just sort of see. So we'll go to underline X on here. And then hooni. Hooni is in addition to jiné. Hoon. Hoon also means to resemble something. And so it does have it listed down here. So I don't know. Ooh. Oh, there. Okay. This is one that Nora translated. So I can't tell you how it works. All I can tell you is it's in there. So there's this line here, and Susie James is telling of Raven and Hosa Potlatch. I think it's what it's called. Ha, shukwanach has kachle wuwaku a has awe nechte ye guchtachun. The first ones who will be entering are the ones I removed the lungs from. And it really means like the chest was removed. But I don't know what that means or why he said that. Right, and so it pops up. She uses this. This is a different story, but she uses it again. Remove the lungs. Okay. Sheesh. Okay, so we also had a question on ut and ah and ah. So just to keep these straight, you do have ut, which is just something that's a fourth person non-human independent pronoun. You do have ut, which is from and t, which means around. So you could say ut kukwagut and go walking. It's usually used for motion verbs to say like just to go cruising, walking, doing the thing. Ut is usually an object pronoun. It means something. Which I guess I'll put fourth non-human objects. And it could also mean some things. Fourth person non-human relation. If it's part of the verb as an object, it should always be low. If it's a noun that's a pronoun, it should always be low. For motions, it's usually high. It's, you know, if you're saying to be at that place. And that gets us to and ah. And this is, it just takes time spotting these things. So is a noun that means lake. Is also kind of a noun that means that place we were talking about. So this, Tlingit loves to use this one, right? You say, it exists there, something, right? So something is there. So Tlingit uses this a lot to refer back to a place that we've already talked about. It also uses it in a lot of place names for the place where something happens. Then you have which is a low tone which is usually a partitive, like some of them, which is a partitive object pronoun, right? So this goes pretty well. So you could say wa, ah. And the first one's not a lake, right? So for example, the setup for a sentence like this might be klein uns kudziti shkakwe I ate some of them there. That's an unusual sentence. Like it would be, you know, you could do it if you wanted to. But this one, it's low, right? And it's also low when you have those jumps to the other side to create a noun like shita, chuta, una, those types of things. There's this ade verb yeah, which would, and then verb yeah. How do we generally translate these two phrases that are very closely sounding? They sound very similar to each other.
Verb, yeah, the place that the verb happened. And then just to guess, day verb, yeah, the place we're going to do the verb.
Not quite. That's a good guess though. You would actually go to ye day on here and have a future form of the verb.
Ade verb, yeah, the way the verb happened.
Right. And these both say happened, but we can change that verb. Like that verb could be in any mode. I don't know any mode, but it can be a perfective, imperfective, it could be future, it could be repetitive, right? Like the place I always eat moose tallow, right? Or just whatever the thing is. So the rule on this verb right here in the middle is this. So with this verb, I'm just going to put it under here. And when you look at these notes, just remember this refers to this stuff up here. Plus I classifier, add attributive suffix. So what does that mean? So if you said ya, na, good, yeah, because that's not a plus I classifier. Woo, gu, di. Yeah, that is a plus I classifier. And this will follow all the exact same rules of the relational suffix, but it will always be low. Plus I classifier, add that suffix. Okay.
I've completely lost. I'm so lost. I'm in a whirlpool.
Okay. Yeah, okay, no problem. No problem. So
This shit. I'm
What do
drowning
you-
actually.
nothing will be removed. Okay. So basically we're saying there's this pattern, a day verb, yeah, the way the verb happened, a verb, yeah, the place the verb happened, right? And this is a pattern, we can use this for a whole bunch of stuff, right? You could say a day, a dot, yuch e watani, yeah. The way he was talking about it, I didn't understand it, right? And so like, usually when you're using this, you're talking about something about this verb. They did it strangely. They did a great job. They did, like, there's some quality you're usually going to be giving to it. This one is all about like something happened there, or it's a place name. And so the key is like, these are two structures that we can use. We could say, it was really good the way that they wrote that or drew it or whatever, right? So then when we get to this verb, there's just this one little extra rule. Plus I classifier has to have a suffix. That's all it comes down to. Plus I classifier needs to have a suffix. So you can have any verb that you want in between these things. Ya, nagut, yeah. So if we take this apart with nagut, we've got na, and we've got 0, good. So that's not a plus I classifier. But if we look at wugudi, now we've got yeah, good. There is. So because that's plus I,
Oh,
add that classifier or add the suffix, sorry. So you'd say ade, what are we gonna be? Ade, ʼatánk, wooch. Yeah, the way they became a hunter. That's a plus I classifier. Throw that suffix on there. So with that rule, it's really just, there's a lot of complicated stuff here. It's saying, look at the classifier. If it's plus I, add a suffix.
and when I look at the theme, I don't know whether it's a plus I or not.
The theme doesn't tell you.
Okay, so the theme in the
Basically-
dictionary.
Okay, yeah, so what kind of, okay, classifier plus I? What? When? When does that happen?
Perfective.
Perfective, like when it's happened, right?
Yep. Every
Positive
positive
perfective.
perfective will be a plus I classifier. So every positive perfective in this little formula thing has to have a suffix. Perfectivi.
What's the logic, or is there a reason for that, or?
Raven probably did it. Because if your brain is like this, and whenever we're doing like, as we learn more about verbs and like the themes and everything else, I think it's less, because I think our English brain is like, just tell me why. Just tell me why. And our Tlingit brain is like, just is. And so, but it's more, for me, it's more about just learning these patterns. And for, like us having this conversation today with an advanced, second language speaker. So when we say, so let's say this. What is that saying?
I always eat moose meat.
Always eat moose meat, right? If I just make one change to this, I have to make this a little smaller, sorry. If I make one change, what happens now?
I never eat moose meat.
That's what your English brain would expect, right? But that's not how.
I haven't eaten moose meat yet.
So I think a lot of our work in this coming to this advanced level is just sort of like, okay, I have to override what my brain expects it to be and just build these new structures, right? And so that's just how Tlingit goes. Because you put not in front of it, doesn't that make sense? Doesn't it make it negative? Well, it is negative, but it's different. I haven't.
It's sort of a more extreme form of negative.
Yeah.
Because if you always, but you, I mean, you could say, I never, but Tlingit isn't wanting to exclude the possibility of it happening in the future.
Yes, if you're going to end up with some sort of never construct, Tlingit is going to want to use the negative repetitive. So for example, here's you ʼatánk. They are talking, they talk. T'sh'ach in you ʼatánk.
But can you go back to that other sentence? So you said if they're going to do the never construct, then what would that be? Like, I never.
It would be a negative repetitive. So like, let's just get in the database and go like sort, like, let's say, okay, I just want to go, I don't want to use vomit. What am I going to use? Let's use a familiar verb. Let's just use goot, even though there's a million verbs there. Okay, so we're going to use a na motion for walking, right? So ʼatánk, got it. ʼatánk, got it, right? ʼatánk, got it. So now we get down here, and we do have, there's a habitual. ʼatánk, I always go there. ʼatánk, I haven't gone there yet. ʼatánk, they go there regularly. So this one, as far as I know, you put tesh in front of it, and that this classifier has to go minus I. Tesh ʼatánk, they don't go there. And you could probably say chatlak away. Tesh ʼatánk, they don't ever go there. And I started noticing this when they were translating some stuff like I think the phrase was like, our culture won't disappear or something. And I was like, oh, that's a negative. Repetitive, which is one more step. Like, we haven't really looked at these a whole lot. The sort of cheat code for these, as far as how you put them together, it is in here. So here's how jiné ʼaduwóos'i. The chapter is 18 verb modes. We are looking for the repetitive. So to put it repetitive together, like to sort of keep coming back to these tables and say, okay, let's learn how to use these tables. I'll probably update them someday. Just make them a little bit cleaner. I don't know. We'll see. So here's 0 and na. Some na verbs, but I think it's unusual. Don't have any preverb. Usually na is going to have you right in front of it. So like, if you're going to say kananik, tell me, you're going to expect you to be in front of it and a K to be at the end. You ʼakanik, they regularly tell about it. Okay. Ba will have ye, ga will have K. You're going to have a minus I. There are plus I versions of this. It's called a state repetitive. I don't know. We're getting into we're digging deep. Here's the stem variation. Opens are high, fadings are low. This is why it's called fading, because fading means in repetitive form, I stay low. That's what this little H means right there. That's why it's there. Strictly to talk about repetitive opens. Everything else short and high. All close are short and high, right? So gutk, we just saw it, gutk. ʼatánk, it's right there too. 0 and some na, the exception ones, will get an underline X. Na should get a K, ka and qa get a CH. So let's just look at some examples here. Ye ʼashatch, they regularly hold it. Akshahitr, they write it regularly. Oh, this 0 ka to j is saying, what does it look like when you put these different thematic prefixes on it? It's not talking about anything else. Oops, that should say yay. So this is yay because it's ka conjugation. Ye you jiné, right? That is wow. Ye you jiné. They work regularly. So you could say ye you jiné. They're really lazy. They don't work. So you can do negatives of these, right? Cake H. They get better. They're good. They're regularly getting better. Áankich. They are kind. That one doesn't have any suffix. They hear it regularly. Kataganch. Kajisatánch. Adeyu yagutk. We just looked at that one. Good. Áankich. I don't know why those ones are. Okay. Anyways, that's a lot of them. Yay.
So jiné, the verb modes that are plus I would be perfective, state imperfectives, he or she or they can't do it. And then the repetitive imperfective for na conjugation. So basically, some of these, like again, there doesn't seem to be a real logic. It's just how it is, eh?
Yeah. These
Yeah.
are your 4 categories. I
Yeah.
think these are your 4 things that can go plus I. So there's a perfective, like this was pretty, I think it's pretty easy in terms of compared to the others. It's like, is it a perfective, positive perfective? Yes. Okay, it's plus I every time. That's what it is. Is it a state verb in the imperfective? Hlitsin, yak a, hlitchan. Yes. Siti. It's got to be plus, that's got to be plus I. Because it's got to, plus I, the main thing that plus I does is say, it happened or it became that way. That, and so if it is that way, it is that way. Plus I. Chwaseku. The potential is where it bends that logic a little bit. It's like, but also if it might happen. All potentials, which include can't, I can't do it, it can't happen, those will be plus I, and that's a bit of a brain bender. There's not very many repetitive states. I don't know how to mark them at this point. So like ʼaduwóos'i is one. Like we just started noticing them, I think, a group of us that were studying it 2-3 years ago, maybe. We asked Zeush about it. We're like, hey, isn't this plus I? Aren't repetitive supposed to be minus I? So yeah.
And the other one I was like, because this was driving me crazy for a long time, I couldn't figure it out, but it's the repetitive imperfective in na, with a na conjugation prefix goes plus I, eh? Where the other three are minus I.
I think it has to do with being itself a state, a repetitive, what do they call it? A state repetitive imperfective. Because I think, let's go look at, here's a na that I don't think it goes plus I.
Okay, sure. Yeah, cool.
We'll check sleep because it's na, and then we'll do to tell information. So the neek. So here's neek, to tell about something. Right? So you got all these different things. You can do a habitual with this. You can get a knick-nooch. That's a different thing. Here's a habitual. So you'd have a knick, and then you've got you a knick. That looks like it's plus I to me, doesn't it? What about this form? A clinic. That one is too. Might be onto something. Let's see. Nata. And then we'll look up to be. Sleep and then to be. Oops, that's not. Oh, that's to put someone to bed. Okay. A steig. So that one. No, that's unexpected. Okay. And here's nata. And teig. So that one's doing. That one doesn't seem like it's not at all. Okay. Okay, that's okay. Oh, so this is one of these are the exceptions. Okay. So remember how it said nah with the little asterisk next to it? What about to be? Where am I going? Ye in a te. Ye in a teach. Ye teach or you yatik. Yeah, so I do think it is. It looks like that's the pattern as with na. What's another na verb? Anybody know? How about reading? You ayatuk. Yak e. Funny na.
Where does the D come from? Because don't we say hadatu? Hadatu, I am reading.
Yeah, okay, so that's a good, okay, yes. So this is to read it. You ʼaduwóos'i. So they're reading some specific thing, reading that verb dictionary. And then if you want to kick this object out, you're going to put, it's going to go plus D right here.
Okay.
Just probably going to be you ʼaduwóos'i, which it is. Wow.
The cheese.
ʼaduwóos'i. Okay. Wild. Okay. That's cool.
Jiné,
Huh.
can you re-clarify what a state verb is, please?
Yes. A state verb is for something to be a certain way. It's often, but not always, g conjugation. But there are some that are not, but there's a lot of them like igake and iklitzin and all these others. It often, but not always, takes only an object pronoun. Chatyake, chatlitzin, chatyanik. And so those are all state verbs.
In English, are they maybe called stative verbs, or is that something different?
That's a good question. They call them stative in the Tlingit verb dictionary. Yeah, I think so.
I think I looked it up. It's like thoughts, emotions, or senses that are unlikely, that are stable or unlikely to change.
Okay.
Is that about right?
Yeah.
Áankich yanawuha. That's a state verb, huh?
I think that's an event verb. Oh, it's a motion verb.
To be hungry?
Oh,
It's about hunger arriving onto you, right?
yeah, that's right. All of those eat verbs are motion verbs.
Oh.
Eat. So the ha part means like this sensation has mysteriously arrived to me.
Ah.
And that's how Tlingit looks at being sleepy. And it's sort of like this thing suddenly, and so it's not a state verb because it's like, it doesn't become that way. Because you could, and it's really interesting because like I think of a state verb, like it reaches some certain way and it can change, but it's going to take a lot of time. Because you could be hungry, but then you eat. You could be sleepy and then go to sleep. And these are also, for the Tlingit way of thinking of it, I think they happen pretty fast. Because I don't know how it is for you, but it's not like, I think I'd be hungry in about an hour. I mean, maybe you just sort of know it, but it feels like suddenly you're like, I'm hungry. And then you got to go get food. Okay, good cheese. Any other incredibly complicated questions?
I have one that I hope will be simple. Would it be appropriate to say, Tlingit, put yourself to bed? And how would that work? Would you add a chush to it?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So we'll go back here, go back down to ta. So this is to put something to bed. So nasta. So you would say, okay, so let's do this. Let's put it together. We've got nasta. So here's all the parts that we need. Oh, we had wohu on here too. So here's object subject as classifier ta, na event for s you put o to bed. Okay, so we know that this is so nasta. Let's put them to bed. So what do we have to do to make this put yourself to bed?
Do you need a you for the subject? You put yourself to bed.
You would. And so command forms don't have subject markers unless the classifier is plus D. Because if you just open this thing up, you do have na, sa, ha. But once na touches sa, it knocks that vowel out of there. Right? It just pushes it right out. But now we're going to have to go, we got to change this a little bit. So you are going to add an I in here. What else needs to go in? What's the self part?
Chush.
Yes, but we'll just put sh as an object pronoun. It's most commonly that.
You inesta.
Well, we got to have na. We'll do it this way. So then we're going to end up with ta. We know we're going to get to ta, right? Right here, we had sa. It's still going to be the minus I form because that won't change. But this will trigger a change, won't it? If you have SH as an object pronoun, something always has to happen.
Add a D.
Yes. So what's the plus D minus I form of the S classifier? Do we know? It's the snake's favorite classifier.
S.
So because now that it goes plus D, now we sort of, this kicks in another rule. Oh, you got plus D classifier? Better put an I in there. The reason for this is because you cannot have only a consonant in the prefix. And so this is how Tlingit keeps that from happening. Even though this na is there, you could have something else. So like you could have a zero conjugation plus D verb with an S classifier. And you'd have to have is in there. So now we have one more rule to follow to put it all together. These two are going to combine.
Deny.
Nay.
Not nay.
Niece.
Shnista. I was laughing earlier when I looked at this verb because I just learned a new phrase yesterday. And apparently, if you see someone that you find incredibly attractive, you say shkasta. Which is, let me lay myself down.
Yeah.
So, I just literally learned that last night. How fun. Shnista. Yeah, put yourself to bed.
Did you say let me lay myself down?
I
Is that what you
did.
said? Okay, I can. You were laughing a little bit at the end there, and I couldn't hear the last part of it.
Oh, geez.
Sounds like the Bible.
It's I don't know if that's a biblical act or not, but it might be in those pages. Okay. Anything else?
I have a question about using ah, who, ah, or like some of them.
do you always have to attach it to the noun you're talking about, like noun and then to say some of those books or some of those apples?
Well, no, you don't. If you're going to use a verb, you don't need ʼaduwóos'i. So you could say whoops, comma, áankich, a'atánk.
Hand me some of those apples.
Yes. So, but you would use the parted. So ʼaduwóos'i is like kind of a noun phrase, I guess, saying some of them, right? And so usually if you have some other noun and then you want to clarify some of them, and you can say ʼaduwóos'i, some of us, ʼaduwóos'i, some of y'all, ʼaduwóos'i, some of them. But if you're going to use something, you can instead attach this partitive object pronoun to the verb if it's relevant. If you're going to say some of them are doing something, you're going to end up with this, I think.
And then if you use that, you put the noun after it. So like some of my uncles would be a'duwóos'i.
a'akhsani. Yeah. Or you could say akhsani, a'duwóos'i. But yeah, you could say adu sa shingit astu I khaltu khaltu adu sa shingit hastu I khaltu. Yes, I would say khaltu. Adu sa shingit hastu I khaltu. But that's kind of an accusatory sentence. Adu shingit hastu I khaltu. Ashtu hasaltu. All the people I teach, whoever I teach Tlingit to, some of them study. Some of them study. So, yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah, geez.
In ʼaduwóos'i, there's a section on using adverbs, pages 222, 223, 224. And there are several pairs in there that have the same meaning, but I can't believe they actually really have quite the same meanings. There's ganayade, which means differently. There's another one that means differently. I'm having seeing things at this point. Oh, on 224, wooch, ganayade.
Yeah, wooch ganayade differently.
I'm okay. I need class now.
And there was another one you said?
Well, there's that pair, and then there's the pair that means quietly, which is ka'inach and ka'akinach. They both mean quietly or silently.
Yeah, I think.
And then there's, go ahead.
A'akinach is the one I would rather use for quietly. Because I know some people use kashtaginach, but that usually means slowly. But I think it could also imply quietly.
And then there was another pair, carefully, there's klinkwat or kliukwat and kadane.
Kadane is more widely used. Klinkwat is usually, I only hear it in like klinkwatshiltin, take care of yourself. So I don't know if there's some sort of special meaning or attachment to it. but my experience has been glyn kwatshiltin is how you say take care of it yourself, and then it's gedain in pretty much every other thing I've ever seen. Some of them, they are like, if you say ʼanich and ʼaqiqa, those do both mean for nothing, but they have different origins, but maybe not different intentions. ʼaqiqa means I pushed it and it just swung right back. So ʼaqiq is or to swing. And then ʼanich means it's just on the beach. But yeah, those are good questions. Like, and using these, like, and some of these, like desquetch and stuff, they're just wild. They're just, when you really get into the old stories and you hear like, there's very few left, but like 10, 20 years ago, when you had these super high fluency storytellers who were amazing at oratory, they would use like this whole wide variety of these things. And it would be just, it'd be just wild just listening to them. But yeah, so qunayede, qunayade, chakotyede. So chakotyede is used a lot for like doing things differently. Qunayade and I think there was another one down here. Wooch qunayade. Wooch qunayade would be different from each other. And then qunayade would be differently. And so you could say stuff like qunayade hasquwusti ha'idach. They live differently than us.
I was watching one of the old celebration videos, and from 84, one of the speakers on stage was explaining the word gunana and saying that they were translating gunana of being different nations, not just for one, it could be used to describe basically any nation that wasn't us.
Yeah, gunana does mean other nation. Like that's what it means. And so, but it's one of those things where it has become attached to Dene peoples. So you could probably say Jakutna, and that would be, people would understand what you're saying. If you said Kunana, almost every speaker you talk to would be thinking of a Dene person, like a Tishoni or something like that. So yes, I mean, that's true, but it's also, some of these things have default meanings as well. Skaida'u.
Yeah, I had a question just for the homework assignment. For the 30 sentences we were supposed to translate. The one that I was a bit confused on is like my dog is at home. I was able to do the my dog and the home being at there, but I just didn't know how to end off that sentence, like to make it a complete sentence on what that verb would be. So I have ach kedli neist.
Let's go through some of these. What a nice transition. What y'all come up with for I'm walking to the school, or just do it on the spot if you didn't get to this too. And just take a couple suggestions and play what I would put.
Skunde nachut.
Okay.
Skunde Jan Chagut.
Okay.
Mine was Skun Kleinde Jan Chagut.
Going to college, good for you.
Yeah.
Any others?
Skunde huagut.
I would probably say Skunde Jan Chagut. And it would go Skoon Klein De Jan Chagut. But just because it says walking, so it's like kind of right now. Where did you go, by boat or car?
I wasn't sure, but one possibility seemed to be gudach sawe yan iakuch.
For this one, I said Gura sa yiyakuch.
Okay. Any others?
That's it.
Okay. I would probably say Gudesa yikur. Gudesa yikur.
That's like you all though?
No,
Okay.
that would be yikur. Which gets a little tricky. Yikur, yikur.
Jiné.
Huh.
One thing on the sentences, I wasn't sure, like the one you just read, whether it's singular or plural.
I would say you all.
You all. Okay. In English you have you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because that could be singular.
Yes, I would say they all, and I would say you all. So that's how I'm going to approach it. But we are going to encounter some sentences that are just too vague in English. So,
So did you make it plural and clink it then with ye?
No.
No, that's singular. Okay.
A na perfective first person will be ye. So, kedain ake ye ta. Did you, one person, sleep well? Oh, does anybody know how I would say that to multiple people? I'll do the prefix.
It's a different verb.
Oops. Look at Tlingit always just trying to be sneaky. Okay, so there's some answers here. Atyetki or adetki is children. Atsku is a child. Where is this child's bracelet?
For this one, I said gusu ya atsku kese.
Jeez.
Chatsu.
Any variants? Oh, here we go. Gusuya at Katsuku Kisi. Oh, we were going to do 20 questions, weren't we? That's next week. Told you we're going to do 20 sentences. Now we're doing, or 20 questions. Now we're doing 30 sentences.
Nick.
Huh?
I jumped.
Oh,
go ahead.
My dog is at home.
Nick ak ketl away.
Any others? Any variants?
I had a woo.
Oh.
Can't remember why it was late at night, but that's what I found.
Cheesh.
Kedli, Nesh, Yati.
Ooh.
Jeez. I might say Neshu Achketli.
Neslu.
This, I'm not saying this is the right way to say any of these things. I'm just saying this is how I would say it.
Neslu
And you can
aketli.
ask any questions you want. Some of these, there's going to be multiple. You could say Netli Achketli.
Mhm.
Nesh Yeyati ʼankich.
Okay.
Neitlu ʼankich. That's pretty short though. Don't even need a verb. The boat went out to sea.
Sorry, backing up for a sec. Could you just talk about that neitlu, that suffix on neit?
Yes. So this is the same suffix as this one, gusu. So you could say yadu, wedu, heidu, yudu, neitlu, skunu, awu. It means to just be at a place, and it's a verbless thing. And tlingit jiwu, it's used right there as well.
Ah.
Nadak kawu. Okay. Bad dog, right? So kawu would be to be located on. Hit kawu, yes. Ravens on the house. So like Tlingit can do this stuff very short, like, and it's wild to have, because it's such a verb-driven language, but there are situations where you're like, you don't even need a verb for that, but you can only do it for right now. You couldn't use this construction to say was or will be. You would have to switch to the yeyati verb.
So I put on there, so that would mean Nate would be it resides at, is that more like residing at home?
Oh, Nate,
Yeah, for Nate, could you put on the end?
you would want there to be a verb there. Nate yeyati ʼankich.
Sheesh.
And like these are fun because it shows like there's a bunch of ways to do it, and it kind of fine tunes a bunch of things as well for us.
With that u at the end on gusu, I see some texts and some books having it as long o gusu. Is there, and some of them pop back to the short. So
Yeah,
what happened there?
So when Jeff reviewed the beginning Tlingit workbook, he recommended gusu like all the time. He said this should be long, and so I changed them all to be long. But I've just been writing it short for 25 years, and so I just revert to writing it short. And I probably say it too. So this is one where I don't think it matters, but I don't know. Some people probably want to like have a death match about it, but I don't think it particularly matters.
So then that would be the same thing when on neitlu, it could be neitlu. Is that right then? Is that what you're saying?
I don't think so, because you have gu plus sa plus for some reason. Like I don't know also why, like this one does weird things, right? Because when you say gusu or gusu, right? It's combining two things, which is wild. Like, because you would expect it to be here, but I think Tlingit, it would be too kind of, I guess, confusing to say guwusa. It would sound like a stump. Good questions. The boat went out to sea.
Dock and dock. One of them has an underline and one doesn't. I always get mixed up.
Dock.
Without
For this one, I got way out deki nadukuch.
Okay.
Dock day.
My kid was really into Doc McStuffins for a while. So I made a Doc McStuffins and Doc McStuffins. So that's out to sea. That's to the inland. But if it's hard to remember which one it is, just remember where the Dakka peoples are.
Inland.
Okay, we ready for it?
I had yak dak uakuch.
Sheesh.
I had dag wooch. Yeah.
Okay. Check the chat. Okay. Hilvasa. De ki wukur wiyag. But duck de wukur would also work. Dak uakuch would also work. I guess I should have said way out to sea for this one. Maybe that'd be better for getting more specific. It's the first time we've tried it. Next year's peepins might have different things. Yeah, so doc would be like it depends on what we're communicating here too, which is why isolated sentences to translate is so tricky in Tlingit, because context is everything, right? So what are you saying? Like, are you saying the boat left all I know is it left here and it went out to sea. That's all I know. That would be daku akuch. It went out there. But if you're saying it went way out on the horizon, way out far, de ki would be way out far. Duck day would be if it's happening right now. Duck day in the kuch wiyag. It's going out to sea. Maybe that's what I should. Oh.
Yeah. Jiné, uakuch would be for a zero conjugation.
Which is what is.
Yeah. And then so these deki or doc or whatever, most of them aren't zero. Is that how that works or not?
I think doc is because you say doc uagut. Or like if we're sitting there looking at the woods and that moose comes out. Doc uagut. Then you say doc uagut. Yeah, it's good questions. I'm walking towards you.
Ide Yanakagut.
Sheesh.
Ichande yanachgut.
Sheesh.
Ide yanchagat.
Yide Yanchagad.
I would probably say Echandi and Chagut. Singular they are walking with me. Now this
Is that what the hun is doing? Is the singular they?
oh no, I was moving on.
Oh.
Sun is to
Oh,
go to be beside. So usually if you're going
Oh.
to someone or you're going to see someone, you're usually gonna say chande. Like it just tends to be that's the one. Ide is usually like some verb is coming, like helping you, or hunger is gonna come to you, or something like that. Chande, it also means like this could also mean I'm coming to visit you. But I would usually use this one if I was to say, if I were to just try and say this sentence on its own, that's probably how I would say it. I'm coming to you. But I'm not going to just go right to you. So that's why I'll stop beside you. So I think that's why it works that way. So this one isn't, they all are walking with me. And this also isn't, we are walking together. They are walking with me.
So is that they third person singular or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Which means I would say this verb in the singular form as well.
Ach in yanagut.
Okay. Any others?
For this one, I have yas na'at khatin.
Yeah, okay. I would probably say ach inyan nagut. Do inyan nagut, I'm walking with them. So one of the keys here is like, because the verb is talking about a singular person, there's no need for the motion verb to go plural. But if you were to say, we are walking together, you would say wooch'in yan to at. So then it would pluralize. Or if you say, they all are walking with me, like this group of folks. Ach in yasna at, or yahasna at. The other thing is just keeping, like for Tlingit, it does use relational pronouns for postpositions, right? So you would say, our, on, rain, downward, precipitating, right? So that just like in terms of both the word order and also just how it works. My on, my around. So ach in, which is, it's tricky to sort of like, because your English brain is usually like, no, it's me, right? Me, with me. That's like my with. That's how the Tlingit looks at it. The raven is on the roof of the house.
I think you missed one.
Oh.
I saw your keys on the table. Sheesh.
The next slide you're going to do is probably going to have the keys on the table, I would imagine, but I don't know.
Yeah, away. Yeah,
I saw your keys on the table.
I saw your keys on the table.
Oh.
I have words, but wasn't sure how to put them together.
Okay.
I have katik, nadak, kawu, kwasatin.
Okay. Sheesh.
Cut.
Piku kwasatin nadak.
Hmm.
I missed one.
I think for this one, I got katik nadauk ka kwasatin.
Ka nadak I katik kwasatin.
Sheesh. I might say Ikatich Ayehosatin Nadauk Kayewuti.
Okay.
I think you could also say Nadauk Ka Ikatich Ayehosatin. Just give it like a little pause. Or maybe say Nadauk Ka Awa Ikatich Ayehosatin.
Sure.
But for me, I guess if I was communicating the same stuff on Tlingit, when I think of why I might say this sentence is somebody's looking for their keys. So for me, I would separate them. Fact. nadak ka yewuti. Fact, right? And so it's like, for me, I'd want to communicate those two things. So you're like, oh, okay. So this is saying like, I did see them. They are on the table. But I don't know. Like, because whenever I do this type of, I guess, you know, and we come up with these sentences. Great idea. And then as I look at them, I kind of have my own perspective of the context, which is kind of, the whole thing is like really interesting. You could say nadak kabu, but that would have to be its own sort of, again, like a separate phrase. That raven is on the roof of the house.
Weyesh hitka yeyeti.
Jeez. Any others?
Hit kuk. Yayati, way.
Jeez.
I think for this one I got hitka ʼaduwóos'i.
Jeez. I might say weyesh hitka yeyeti. Kuk is also works just fine. You could say weyesh hit kabu. Uchi. We saw an eagle on a rock.
Yeah.
ʼaánk ka te ʼaduwóos'i.
Te wait cha'ach wutusatin.
Yeah, the same actually.
Okay. Any others?
For this one I got wait out eka wutusatin.
I think, where did I come up with this? Tekayeyeti ch'ak utisatin. This is not saying what is this? Why did this one change? Okay, never mind. Okay, so there are different ways to say a lot of these things. One thing I would make sure that we're practicing is if we're using on or around or stuff like that, whatever the thing comes after, that's the, you know, so you say nadak ka Kate. That's a dog on the table. Because if sometimes we might switch around and say Kate ka nadak. That's a table on a dog, right? And so just keeping an eye on those things. It's our English brain that's going to want it to go in a certain way, but that way it has to get adjusted. For this, and these ones get a little complicated. It's like, I see this thing that's yours. This thing is that. We saw this thing, which is on this other thing. And so you could separate these into two sentences. They could just sort of go together. You could talk to satin. Teka. You could probably say it like that, right? Whenever I hear teka, I always think of that thing in the Moana movie. Was it like Te Ka or something? Okay. But Te Ka Ye'yeti Ch'ak. This is now turning this verb, this whole verb phrase, into an adjective. The eagle that's on a rock. Te Ka Ye'yeti Ch'ak. De Ka Nachwagudi Kang. The chicken that crossed the road, right? So you can do that with whole verb phrases, right? By sort of turning that into an adjective using this, like, we saw a blue dog. Are there blue dogs? There's got to be, right? Am I just imagining things? Clifford, you do a saw good. Any questions before we go? This is fun.
Smurf Cagely.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So I had a question, and that's because I didn't do this assignment, and that's because I didn't know about it. I'm sorry, I apologize. But I went to look for our last Wednesday YouTube, and I couldn't find it. Did the last Wednesdays get posted? I saw the intermediate, but I didn't see ours.
Oh. Let me check.
And that I checked on it before Monday, so I was looking for it on over the weekend to know what we were doing. But anyway.
Is that the 14th? Is that when that was?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it's there.
Is there? Okay.
It's under advanced, but I don't know. I can't say for sure when it was posted.
Okay, that might have been.
We can neither confirm nor deny that it was posted.
Okay.
Okay.
But what you say is, I cannot recollect.
I don't recall. I don't recall.
Okay.
This is the Ollie North defense.
We're just wrapping up, Colleen. I'll call you in 2 minutes, eh?
Okay.
No, it's good.
So in addition to the conversation we're going to have on Monday, then the following Wednesday, we'll have more of these sentences.
Yeah, so we've got 30 of these, and the idea was like we're trying these in intermediate Tlingit. And so there's going to be a few spots that are, as we figure out how to sort of assign sentences for translation, which is something I should have been doing a long time ago, but live and learn. So yes, I would, so I'm trying to catch up with in the chat. In other news, I think there might be 41 people teaching Tlingit right now, which is wild to me. That's wild. So good job, Tlingit language community. The other thing that I want us to start thinking about, which we were going to do a little bit tonight, but it's okay. So this is Duktut. And what I want you to do, so this is the translation that jiné and jiné, which is wonderful. It's a wonderful translation. Here's the Tlingit over here. What I would like you to do is a word-for-word translation. So I might say over there, that. Henya awe. That is Henya. Vicinity. Yeah, and I don't know if you want to translate Henya or not, but you could. So especially like looking at whenever you encounter a verb, like, do you understand how this verb is working? Do you have any questions about stuff that you're encountering? So you've got a guide right over here. You're being so it's a long story, but as you encounter things, as you go from this left, and you sort of don't just type everything that's over here. Take a look at it and see, like, and what I want you to note, is there anything that you're not getting? And do you know these verbs, right? I would, if you don't know what is, I want you to go see if you can find out, right? because I never really went over it together why people train for strength. There's some stuff in here that's what like a ʼaduwóos'i. I don't know if you're going to find that verb documented. And so this is on our class page, and I just want you to start going through it. I think we'll probably wait till after a spring break, and we'll go through it together. But this is your midterm, is to do a retranslation of this. And the idea is just to sort of challenge yourself to understand everything that is in there. So if someone came to you and say, hey, I was reading ʼatánk, I was wondering what this word was. You're like, I know every word in that story. You don't have to say it that aggressively. It is, let's see. Right there. It's Pages version, Word version.
Okay.
Download it, adjust it, do it. And so intermediate Lingi are doing this exact same thing with ʼatánk. So they have a shorter story. I think y'all got 230 lines. No problem.
Cool. Cool.
50 days you got luck.
Yeah.
See hand up. What?
Getting to all this stuff and then printing it off and working with it in sheets is a little bit too far for some of us. And having like that Word and PDF link on the web, on the class page for ʼaduwóos'i, that's, you know, that's manageable. Is there any way we can format this stuff so that like the answer or the questions that we have to translate are available in a PDF, so we could just print them off and then handwrite them?
Oh, you're talking about the sentences that we
Yeah,
print?
yeah.
Sure.
I mean, because sending it to an Excel spreadsheet means you got to have the spreadsheet, then you got to dink with it, and then you got to save your own stuff someplace else. And I'm just saying, for some of us, it's teach.
So we want so what I could do, because I have this slideshow with goes through all the answers, I could create a PDF of that has just the blanks. That'd be good enough? That's pretty fast. That's not too bad. Please say, okay. That is very bad. That's not bad. It's not too bad. It's not very bad. Okay, one last thing before we go. We do have what's our topic for Monday?
Plants. So what plants do you like to garden or tend or gather or grow or use for medicine? So I was thinking we could ask, which plants do you like to verb, or we could just say kayani, or another word, dot ha'in kananik, tell me about plants. And then there's another word for plants too that's more like growing thing, right? Should we use that instead?
Is that it? Let's just use kayani, because that's a really important word for Tlingit. Like when they used to have these, and maybe they still have them in Sitka, a committee that like talks a lot about plants and medicines, and they were called the Kayani Commission. And then Dostoevsky used to talk to us about how important Kayani was. Kayani dot your ʼatánk. Okay. Hey, gonna cheese train.
ʼaduwóos'i.
Okay.
That sentence assignment was really good.
Okay.
Enough cheese.
ʼaduwóos'i.